Hey everyone, welcome back to the Critic-Verse. Today we're continuing with our recap and review of Warrior Season 3, with Season 3, Episode 9, titled All of Death is a Going Home. Now before we get to the review, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to keep updated on all things Critic-Verse and to also help me get to my goal of 500 subscribers. Now, onward to the rest of the video. Once again, the episode is titled, All of a Death is a Going Home. This line is a part of Chao's eulogy to Father June during his funeral. It's from a proverb that goes, all of life is a dream walking. All of death is a going home. Which most likely means that life isn't the goal. It's just the journey to get home, which is referring to the afterlife. Essentially, we're seeing a shift in the journey that a lot of our characters have been taking this season. Bill finally becomes chief. Lee Young leaves Mai Ling and the Long Z behind. Hong and Marcel see how different they really are. Atoy loses someone close to her. And Sahm pays the price for true love. And young June helps Father June finally go home. The episode begins with Douglas in his study, and then suddenly he goes to check on a noise and sees his main enforcer, Mr. Bullwhip Guy, fall dead. He is confronted by Lai, here to avenge her sisters, to which Douglas draws his sword and then begins to toy with her. Then we get a fantastic fight choreography, but soon Douglas gets the upper hand, but in a playful way. He even tells Lai not to give up so quickly and hands her back her sword. Then they cut to the intro. Bill is getting dressed, trying to work through the pain of his bruises, when his wife tells him someone is here to see him, and turns out it's Buckley with some of the guys from the station. And he came to confirm Atwood's claim that Bill attacked him. The boys at the station stick up for Bill, and Buckley decides that Bill should replace Atwood as the new chief. And with confirmation from his wife, Bill accepts the position. Sahm has a private meeting with Yanmi at Chao's shop, warning her that the guys she's training are close to perfecting their counterfeits, and they won't need her anymore, and Sahm is worried for her. Yanmi wants Sahm to leave with her, but she knows he won't, even if he wants to, and she sort of gives him an ultimatum on whether to figure out what he wants. Bill walks back into the police station now as the chief and is given a round of applause. Lee congratulates him on his new promotion, and Bill pays respect to his predecessor before retiring to his new office. Sahm discusses Yanmi's proposal to Atoy and weighs his options, realizing that he doesn't really belong in the Hop way anymore. And Atoy never thought he did anyway. Lee Young returns home since the previous episode, showing Mai Ling surrounded by Long Z hatchets, who apparently are protecting her even from Lee Young. He shows them all why this is a bad idea and makes an example out of one guy. And after confronts Mai Ling, but she's afraid of him, and that seemingly is the coffin in the nail of their whole relationship. And even Lee Young's relationship with the Long Z. Nellie then brings Lai's body, which Douglas apparently had left at her doorstep, to Atoy's, which deeply wounds Atoy. Douglas is giving Leary a tour of his railroad operation, and Leary advises him to start hiring Irish labor, given that Buckley made him a certain promise about getting rid of the Chinese. But Douglas finally reveals his true intention. he has no intention of hiring Irish labor, since in his words, they do half the work for twice the pay. And that he was going to use his leverage on Buckley to keep the Chinese around for as long as possible, which angers Leary, and he puts an end to their partnership. Young June has to face the truth about Father June's condition, and Father June pleads with his son to let him go out on his own terms, instead of falling into his sickness even further. Young June finally accepts this, and before he does the deed, he expresses his love for his father, and in a touching and tragic scene, he ends Father June's life. At the Artist Collective, Hong and Marcel are getting cozy, and as Hong goes to get a refill, he gets hit on by a man who he recognizes as a cop, and a cop that was a part of the raid on the Hop Way episodes earlier. And once he puts his hands on Hong, Hong beats the man savagely and severely, to which he leaves after seeing everyone's reaction. Marcel chases after him, and when Hong explains who that guy is, Marcel dismisses it as this isn't Chinatown, which doesn't sit right with Hong, and says Marcel is living in a fantasy, to which Marcel calls their relationship quits. And I mean, it's kind of ending just as fast as it began. Leary returns to the Banshee to find Connor and his father, and Leary enlists Connor and his brother for a new job tonight. And then it cuts to Douglas's railroad being blown up, and Leary watching it all go up in flames. Yanmi returns to her father's print shop to find Agent Mosley waiting for her, and when Yanmi continues to cling to ignorance, Lee comes out with her hidden stash in hand, and Yanmi is then arrested and almost practically disowned by her father. A funeral is being held for Father June, where a couple of the men lodge their hatchets into the casket, sort of like as a tradition. Chow then starts off with a joke to begin his eulogy, but his eulogy is actually heartfelt, even gives Young June some respect, and then he goes on to say the episode title. Next, Leary shows up to a fancy gentleman's club that Douglas is having brunch at, maybe lunch, and drops a railroad spike on the table to deliver a message. Douglas then threatens to have Leary arrested, but Leary throws back in his face that these cops, most of them are Irish, and they have family who Douglas won't employ, so good luck with that. And as Douglas tries to belittle Leary, Leary tells him that he hasn't met the gangster that he claims Leary really is. Yanmi's brother comes to see Sahm and tells him she's been taken and that it's his fault. Next, we get to see Sahm walking right into the police station and straight up to Bill without saying a word. Sahm informs Lee, Mosley, and Bill of where the plates and the money are going to be, and will give them the location in exchange for Yanmi's freedom. Lee agrees, but won't let her go till they get the plates in hand, and Sahm asks for time to set things up, but also wants to see Yanmi first. Sahm then informs Yanmi of the deal, but also informs her that he's coming with her. He's going to leave Chinatown with her, and what the plan is after she's released. Mostly just for her to wait for him at the train station. Sahm goes to Chow and asks him to hold a bag for him, and the bag contains a lot of money, and it turns out Sahm has been saving every bit of money he earned for the Hop Way since he came to Chinatown, and he needs him to hold it for just one night. Chow figures out Sahm is leaving with Yanmi and asks him why, He tells Chow she was arrested, and Chow figures out he cut a deal. Chow asks whether she's worth it, and Sahm says she is, and Chow agrees to help and cuts Sahm off before he starts to get sentimental. Sahm returns to Hopway only to find Youngjun and Hong enjoying Father Jun's favorite drink, having a bro talk, talking about how Youngjun is dealing with his dad's death and how Hong is dealing with his relationship with Marcel ending. And it kind of just feels like shit knowing that Sahm is going to betray them. But anyway. Next, Chow is confronted by Happy Jack's former right hand, who is now the boss and has to send a message by killing Chow. But Chow offers the location of the plates and tells him to go tomorrow when he knows the cops are going. And I gotta say, that's a smart move on Chow's part. I mean, he always has a back door to make a deal. In the final scene of the episode, Leary is drinking at the Banshee, and a couple of men come in, and he figures that Douglas had them sent to take care of him. But Leary is super calm, finishing his drink with a gun to his head. And as he finishes, he grabs the gun, and it is on. Leary is reminding the audience who he is and takes on all the men at once, taking them down one by one, beating one of them with a hammer, and then taking the last one alive and curb stomping him on the edge of the bar counter, ending the episode with a roar. Holy shit, what an episode. And I believe it was the last episode or the one before that I called the calm before the storm. Well, this episode is definitely the storm beginning to brew for the finale. Couple of things I want to go over. Chief Atwood feels like another wasted character this season, brought on to the show just to pave the way for Bill. As this episode, he's not actually in it. And episode 8 was his last episode because the character is mentioned but doesn't show up at all. And speaking of wasted characters, Marcel is another wasted character. Seems like he was only brought in to be a love interest for Hong. And I think they barely have any scenes together, seeing as Hong felt like he really took a back seat this season. And then this episode, their relationship is already over. But who knows? The character is still alive, so maybe he'll come back next season. Hoping that we get a next season, but, fingers crossed. And a funny thing I noticed is that in the Long Z, this season especially, is that there's this one hatchet man that they always focus on and who always gets the lines whenever they have to have one of them speak. And that he's the only one that speaks besides Lee Young. And he just keeps coming back this entire season. Like, besides Mai Ling and Lee Young, he's probably like the third most important Long Z character. It's pretty interesting how a good amount of the scenes from the season 3 trailer were from this episode. And it goes to show that pretty much the whole season was done filming when they edited and put together the trailer. Something that was really sad to see was how the relationship between Mai Ling and Lee Young ended up. Like, it really didn't last long. Like, they finally got married last episode, and then the marriage just seemed to end after Mai Ling's scheming became too much, and Lee Young had to make the ultimate sacrifice and give up a friend. Also, I really didn't like the choice that Sahm made. And I know he made the choice for love. And I really like him and Yanmi together. But it's just the fact that he's like stabbing his boys in the back. And then he even has a drink with them in this episode. And it's just like, damn, man, you're really going to screw over your boys? But I digress. But I gotta talk about the MVP scene of the episode. And it's, of course, Leary's ending fight scene. Because for about half the season, Leary steps back from fighting. And, like, it's mainly because of, like, that injury he got last season. And he was also learning how to manipulate the politics and the industry tycoons from Douglas. So he was taking a step back and learning more and growing as a character, but now it's finally time to let the rage out, to let the gangster out. And then it also shows you how, like, earlier in the season, when Douglas confronted him with, like, 3 or 4 guys, and then he stepped back. But then in this episode, he takes on twice that many in the fight. And it just shows you, yeah, this is the monster that Leary really is. But, again, great episode. And that's all for today. Let me know what you think about this episode. And thanks for joining me in the Critic-Verse. See you next time.